Just okay. And so we can go from this point on, and then again, our petroleum information group of who we are. We can say we appreciate taking the time. We're going to just a quick outline. We're going to go through a safety share. We'll introduce the speakers, and if time is available after the Q&A period for our speakers, we will go through some of the 2021 stats so far for the first quarter. So again, we will be sticking to our time. We will be completing the meeting at 11:30 for those that have other commitments further in the day. I also would like to talk to you first about a safety share. So again, welcome everybody. Do we have everybody in the room there? Cheryl, do you know, is everybody in?
Yeah, everyone is.
Okay, sounds great. Okay. So anyways, our safety share. So again, the playgrounds, the school playgrounds, we're looking at the school zones, the 30K zones. We want to make sure that we're being aware of those. You know, the kids are getting out and about and they're playing a whole lot more. Things are ramping up as far as activity goes in our communities. And again, we want to be watching as we're driving. I mean, business is ramping up. We want to pay attention to the kids that they're out there, and maybe they've been locked indoors a little too long and they just want to get out and they want to play. So we want to make sure we're being aware of what's going on. So we want to watch for the balls or other things that might be leaving the playground area and slow down in the areas, be prepared to stop. So that the increase in outdoor activities, and again, people walking down the streets and whatever it might be as well too. So we want to be fully aware of that as well. So like I said, I'm just trying to line up my screens here. So as we move forward, I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker for this meeting here. You've come to attend and learn about load securement. So Greg Evans is a retired military officer who worked in the transportation field for 35 years. After his retirement in 2011, he has been a safety consultant with the Saskatchewan Safety Council over his career. Greg has instructed thousands of drivers in the safe operation of vehicles, from collision avoidance on ice, defensive driving, professional driver improvement, 55 Alive, safe operation qualifications on all types of powered mobile equipment, TDG, WMIS, trailer towing, and load securement. His expertise also includes instructor development, traffic accommodation in work zones, and flag person instructions, respirating fit testing, and numerous other courses related to health and safety. If you want to take over the screen, Greg, that'd be great. And yes, we'd like to welcome Greg and thank you for taking the time to present on this. And we certainly, if you want to put your virtual claps and welcome Greg to this meeting, we certainly appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And I hope you can see my shared screen up there now and things, but my name is Greg Evans, as I was introduced. I'm with the Saskatchewan Safety Council, and just a little plug for the Safety Council is that we've been around for just about 65 years. And one of the things is that we are a nonprofit organization. A lot of people figure that we get a lot of government money and things, but that is not so. We are completely funded through donations and memberships, sponsorships, and have a wide variety of training resources out there, as well as programs that we develop as we're going along. The biggest thing is that we're in the world of safety, and we take our jobs very seriously as we go along. And one of the biggest things is that we're trying to keep more people safe out on the roads, as well as we had from the introduction, even in schoolyards, playgrounds, and things like that as we're going along. So if you'd like to donate, we'd be much welcome to all proceeds that come our way as we go along, so we can continue to upgrade our safety program as we go along. But my main topic today is load securement in the trucking sector. And one of the big things is that this course usually runs about 2 days when we are actually doing a continuous presentation to different companies that we are working with. The biggest thing is that this briefing is basically going to be a Reader's Digest version of what it is. By no means will you become proficient at load securement. We're just going to get back down into the basic physics of what we're hauling on the roads and how to keep it in. Whether it's with small trucks or big trucks, we want to keep that load within the confines of that vehicle. So the purpose of the training is to make sure that the carriers and shippers, enforcement personnel, safety personnel understand the requirements of safe cargo securement. We can't get away with just having something on the back of our vehicles, and we see it all the time, especially with the mom and pop organizations or people that are hauling even garbage out to the dump. Just throwing something over top of it and hoping that it's going to stay in the back of that box. When we get into the bigger parts of the trucking industry and everything else, we got to make sure that that cargo is going to stay with that truck and stay in place. And there are some requirements that go along with it. So we have to consider, first of all, the placement of that load. With the bigger trucks and everything else, there is certain areas of the truck where we must place that load so that it handles the load securely on there without collapsing or overloading or offsetting the balance of that vehicle. And then we get into the securing devices, and we have to get into the basic physics of what is going, the weight of that item that we're carrying on the back of that truck, with the numbers of devices, the placement of those devices, and the capacity. And one of the things is we're going to talk a fair amount about the capacity of those securing devices as we're going along, because we have to make sure that whatever we're hauling has to stay within the confines of either the bed of that trailer or in the box of that truck as it's going around. And it does shift around considerably. So why is it important to that cargo is securely and properly secured? Well, first of all, loss of life. An object coming off a vehicle at any speed is a potential projectile coming at another vehicle, at a person walking by, the possibility of loss of life when we're out there. Loss of the load, that's one of the biggest things. We don't want to lose our loads. To start with, as the driver is going to have to end up having to either put it back on, damage to the item or things like that, and the potential hazards that are associated with that loss of load. Damage to the freight. One of the things is the companies at the other end, the receivers, want their freight in good condition when it's there. And any shifting or crushing or movement of that freight within that load causes a problem at the other end on the receiving side when you have damage to that freight. Damage to vehicles. The thing is that if we overload some vehicles and things, the suspension is damaged, the trucks are damaged. There's a lot of damage that goes along where we don't even see in the short term. Has long-lasting effects when we are transporting other heavier objects when we're out on the roads. The possibility of a crash, and this comes into the dynamics of that load, is that once we've increased the weight of that load and everything else, momentum and inertia has a big part in especially braking. If we add 80,000 pounds to the back of that vehicle, it's going to take a lot longer to stop that vehicle. And we want to make sure that that load stays in place, that it's not shifting and propelling that vehicle forward as it's going along. Again, there's also issuances of citations and fines to drivers. The thing is that the driver is ultimately responsible for whatever is on or within their truck. And if it becomes dislodged or causes damage to something, the driver is actually responsible for that. So I'm sure they don't want to have to pay these extra costs from doing something improper. And then once the vehicle is damaged, now we have a problem with not being able to use that vehicle. And time is money. The thing is that as we go along, once those vehicles are damaged and they aren't highway certified or highway worthy, again, that vehicle is going to be placed out of service, which is now costing the company a whole lot of money out of pocket to get the vehicles fixed and to get them back in service. Who benefits from all this is the driver itself. If they're sure about how they secure the items on the trailer, they feel more confident. Not overconfident in that they pick up speeds or doing things that they shouldn't be doing, but they understand that their load is not going to become dislodged from the confines of the box or the trailer itself, and they become a little bit more confident. They also feel safer on the roads as they know things are not going to start flying off and maybe damaging or hurting other people. Again, having to readjust the load or tighten the load, this is time that it could be spent while driving or transporting that load. The biggest thing is that once it becomes dislodged, and loads do shift, even if we figure that we've got them as tight as possible, just the flexing of the truck bed or the settling of the straps and chains that are on there has a big important factor as we're going along. And this is one requirement where after we start going for about 10 or 15 minutes is to pull over and check all our securing devices just to make sure that they haven't shifted or loosened up. And again, a good driver is one who is very confident, very safe, and does their load correctly. And if we have too many incidents with a lot of drivers, they become a problem with the company or with themselves. And it could end up with some type of employment action taken against them, whether it's a suspension, whether it's an outright firing and things. But the thing is that those drivers that are very confident and safe with their load securement become much better representatives of the company. And that's one of the things is that as the carrier or the company, you end up with a better safety record. And that's one thing we're all striving for, is to ensure that we have a good safety record. We don't want to have all these incidents building up, because a whole lot of small incidents end up into that pyramid formula that we could end up with a fatality at the very top. Again, improve business competitiveness. The better we can transport items to and from point A to point B, we become much more competitive with the other companies out there. And that is the drive with a lot of companies, is to to get into the competitive part of the job sector. There is that the more we can be on the road, the safer we can be on the road, we do end up with that competitive nature out there. We also have that reputation to uphold. One of the big things is that there are companies out there that have that reputation of just getting it from point A to B. It's not that they're doing it safely, they're just moving it from point A to B. And they probably have a lot of those little incidents that go along. Once we get into that category of being a very reputable company, of hauling things safe, not damaging equipment or freight as we're going along, the company gets a much better image and reputation along the way. And that's one thing all companies are striving for, is to have that reputation of being a good carrier. Again, it gets into the insurance costs. Again, in a lot of cases where if you have a lot of mishaps, it's like everything else, the insurance rates go up. So the thing is if we can reduce the number of mishaps or the incidents, usually our insurance costs will hopefully come down a little bit. But for the most part, we're trying to keep the roads safe out there as we're traveling down the road. One of the big things is we don't want to damage a lot of that cargo that we're hauling. The job of that freight hauler is to make sure that the cargo gets there damage free. The thing is that when it's received at the other end, you want to be able to use that cargo, not have to repair it or replace it, as the case may be. Again, we don't want to have to keep reloading it or making sure that we're not going to lose that load. And again, every time we have to stop to readjust things to in case we do lose something on it, having to reload it, it's a lot of work on the driver's side to replace or to actually get the load back into where it should be. So we're not losing a lot of time when we're reloading. The liability side of it and everything else, if the load is going to stay intact on there, then we know we're not going to have that liability of causing other damage outside the area of that truck. The biggest thing is that you're responsible for everything that goes on with your load, with your driving habits and everything else that's going along. So that liability is a big thing as we're going to go out there. And then the public out there, I know as a driver out there, it's been a few years since I've been on the other side of the equation as a hauler or making sure that it's all there. But the more education we get out there for the trucking industry and making them understand about, we have to share the road with everybody out there. We want to make sure that it is safe as possible. And that's one of the things that I look at is, especially when I'm traveling down the road, is having all these vehicles where there are things fluttering off the side, or you can see when they touch the brakes where the load shifts a little bit, things like that. But the road safety is the biggest issue out there. Is we have enough problems out on the road. We don't really want to have to worry about those big trucks losing something as they're coming down driving against us. And again, it gives us a little bit more confidence out there sharing the road with the big trucks, and not just the big trucks. Load securement goes right down to we're getting into the summer season where we're getting a lot of recreational vehicles that are virtually the same size as some of these big trucks. And unfortunately, in the road world and everything else, is that we are actually catching up after the fact with a lot of the recreational vehicles out there that are sometimes 40, 50 feet long, and these people have had absolutely no training in hauling a trailer or sharing the road with other vehicles out there. So it's an all-encompassing world out there, not just with big trucks, but anybody that's on the road hauling something down there. The load securement is very important. And then the last part of this is all the receiver. If they get their cargo in the in a safe way, undamaged and everything else, then they can sell it. So they have that improved sales ability as it's gone. They don't have the lost production time where they're having to fix a lot of equipment because it was damaged in transport and things like that. You end up with the satisfied customers. I'm sure we've all had packages delivered to us that are crumpled and crushed and everything else. And the thing is our first idea is whatever was inside, is it damaged? The thing is that we want to get it there safely and in good condition, just so we have the satisfied customers for repeat sales and transportation of their equipment and things. Again, reduced overtime and waste. Again, having to readjust loads, tighten loads, ensure that they're not falling off and everything else. This just creates a whole lot of extra time as out there. And again, if there's time-sensitive deliveries and everything else, the receiver on the other end then is going to ensure that they get their product when it is been requested for. So we don't end up with that overtime and waste. One of the North American standards out there, and again, when I start talking about the standards of securement, As I say, I've only got a very limited time here to do it. So we're going to try and kind of take the highlights of what it is. But the North American Securement Standards out there states that a cargo must be contained, immobilized, or secured so that it does not leak, does not spill, doesn't blow off the truck, fall off the truck, fall through the vehicle, become dislodged on the trailer or in the box, or shift upon within the within the vehicle. And these are things that really affect the driver in a lot of cases, but it also is for the traveling public out there. The biggest thing is that we don't want to follow a vehicle that may be leaking out of the box. First of all, we have no idea what is leaking out of their truck. But again, we don't want to have all those other hazards out there. So the standard was developed, and we're going back to about 1997, where they actually had a joint Canada-US committee represented both the government and the industry to prepare the North American standards as they were out there. And since then, we've been following along with the standards as they go along, just to ensure that the trucking industry or anybody hauling things falls within the categories of the securement standards. To understand the securement standards, we have to go back to the basics. And some of the basics that are out there is that it comes back to the laws of physics. First of all, an object at rest will stay at rest. So if it's sitting on the deck of the truck, it will stay there as long as we don't have any outside forces. An object in motion will stay in motion. And that's one of the things that we're trying not to have, is that object moving in motion. The biggest thing is that objects change their motion when they are subjected to an outside force. And this principle really dictates how we secure our load to the trailers or in the trailers. When we are subjecting it to force, such as braking or acceleration, curve, centrifugal force, inertia, momentum, all these things, that's that outside force that acts upon that object. And the biggest thing is we have to understand how much force is put upon those objects when they're on our trailers. You can see from the diagram in front of you is that we have what's called G-forces out there, gravitational forces. And from the left-hand side of the screen there, you're going to see that 80% of the weight of the load goes forward when we are braking. So the most force that we have on that load is when we are braking, and it increases when we panic brake or the force of that motion moves forward. So we have to really consider that in our securement side of it. We don't want it moving forward, especially coming off the trailer and through the containment means into the truck of the cab, or going right across it and moving and taking that cab off and becoming dislodged. So we really have to look at that forward momentum as the biggest G-force, and we have to secure it to about 80% of the weight of our load. So we've got a 10,000-pound cargo on our deck. We have to secure it to at least 800 or a 10,000 kilogram load on there. We have to secure it to at least 800 kilograms as such, and that is just with the forward momentum. When we're looking at the rearward momentum in the right-hand top corner there, that's about half the weight. Now, we don't have as much force going backwards when we're accelerating. Normally, we don't have that much power or torque to actually generate that much G-force, but it can happen when we're braking in reverse or accelerating. So we only have to look at about half the G-force that's included on that. When we're going around corners, you're going to have to also look at about half the weight of that item moving sideways when we're cornering, either left or right as it's going around. And then there's the last point there, which is the 20% of the weight, which is going upwards. And because of our Saskatchewan roads and the time of year, we have a lot of dips, we have a lot of potholes, and we've all felt that motion when we go over a certain hump where our vehicle kind of bounces a little bit. And that G-force, where it feels like we're lifting of our seat, that's the G-force that's also going on the load. So we have to consider all 5 areas when we're securing our load, with the most important one being that forward momentum as we're braking, because we do a lot of braking and we're changing that momentum as it's going forward. So we actually have to really be secure when we're doing that. When we're talking about securement devices and things, a cargo being transported on a highway has to remain secured within or transporting on the vehicle. Cargo does not stay on a vehicle just because you tell it to do so. We have to have some sort of securing device on there. Now, I've got a picture out there with just a few of the devices out there, from the cargo straps to the ratcheting straps. You can't see too much on the load binders and chains and everything, but there's such a wide range, a variety of securing devices, which are all good. But the biggest thing is that they have to have some sort of indication of how much load that that strap or chain or load binder is going to actually carry. And when we've talked about that 80% or that 0.8 Gs going forward, we actually have to know how much weight we are securing on the deck of that truck. So if we take the strap where we have that 5,400 pounds of the WLL, or the working load limit, or as we're going down there, that is going to be the working load limit. And as we talked about earlier about that 10,000 kilogram cargo on there, where we would need a strap that was going to resist 800 kilograms. This strap, which is a 4-inch strap. Now, not all 4-inch straps are rated the same. That's why they have a tag on them, or you can see on the in the other picture, they're actually stamped on the strap. Those are the actual working load limits. So in a case of that 1,000 kilogram cargo, this strap would actually work very well. And you'll see a lot of the semi-trailers, they do have the 4-inch straps on them because they actually have that 5,400 pound working load limit, or the 2,400 kg working load limit. And that would be within that 80% of that load going forward. As we get into the different sizes and everything, I have pages and pages of tables that go along with this as we're going along. And whether you're using wire rope or chain, webbing, cordage, grab hooks, binder, shackle, any type of securing device, somewhere along the lines, it does have a working load level. Load limit on it and things. And basically any strap or securing device that we are using on the trailers and everything else will have this tag. And one of the big things is that if you don't have the tag, or it's not strapped on, it's stamped on the strap, it actually becomes worthless, because I have no idea what that strap is actually going to hold. And just from experience and everything else, and in the years in the industry and things, all 4-inch straps are not rated to 5,400 pounds. The thing is all companies have different structures to the straps and everything else. So having these tags on it, or indicated on the strap how much it is actually going to hold, is very important. And that's one of the things the drivers have to be very cognizant of, is that they understand how much that strap is going to hold down and in good shape. Once it becomes torn or frayed or everything else, that working load limit goes down. And again, my rule of thumb is that any defect in that strap really poses it as worthless, because I don't know if it's actually going to tear, it's going to break free or anything else. When I'm using straps and everything else, when I was back in the industry and things, I ensured that all the straps were in very good shape before they were actually secured to the load. So the biggest thing is we have to understand the physics and the properties of what our load is and how it is. And then when we get into the different types of loads, and this is where it becomes virtually a nightmare when we're trying to get into the workload process, is that hauling a lift of plywood or a lift of lumber is secured a little bit differently than a whole lot of steel tubing pipes as such. And there are so many different types of cargo out there, is that each one has its own individual way of securing it down. The biggest thing is we have to ensure that that load is going to stay on there, and not just with the top piece pushing down on the bottom piece to hold that in place. Each piece should be secured separately onto the deck of the truck, just to ensure that we don't have that pyramid effect or that momentum as it starts shifting down and away. And a good example is hay bales on a lot of flat decks, is that they should be secured with the bottom row onto the deck, and then the top row that's pyramided on top of it then should be secured individually on top of that. It's the same as just pyramiding the pipe on there, but they're sat in cradles as they're going on there. They're usually steel strapped to one another, and then the load is then strapped to the trailer. And again, the number of different variations out there, I could probably spend the rest of the day just going through the variations of the different types of loads that are out there. Unfortunately, we don't have that amount of time out here. And again, with the basic principles that are out there, I tried to give the importance of why we need to keep those loads secured on there. And when it gets into how we actually secure it, is that this is where we like to get our hands dirty and come out and actually deal with the different types of loads. And one of the securements that we didn't talk about when we get into our loads is when we start getting the loads higher up. And we didn't talk anything earlier about the tipping side of it, where we get very specific things where they become twice as high as the base of the load as such. And again, where we were talking about 0.2 gravity of the momentum upwards, once we start stacking that load up, that tipping now increases very considerably, when we get about 1.5 times the height of our base, where we were only guessing at getting into that 0.2 of the gravity as such. Now we have to increase that to at least half the weight of that object, just to keep it from tipping over as we're going back and forth. So there's a lot of variables, and there's a lot of factors that go into load securement, and virtually the list of securing devices out there is limitless as we're going along. The key is that we want to make sure that everything stays within the confines of our vehicle at all times. And the biggest point is knowing how much that load is carrying and how much force is acting upon that load when we are in motion. And that's where we get back to that principle that if we can keep it secured to that trailer, We'll be much safer out on the road, and it's going to benefit everybody, not only just the trucking or the industry, but the traveling public as it's going along. Again, as I said before, there are a lot of good books out there that give the general information to the securement side of it. As I say, you can look at the driver's handbook for cargo securement that goes along with it. And if anybody's ever actually taken a look at that manual, it's about a 1-inch manual with all the different types of loads that are being carried out there as it's going along, as well as going through the basic physics of how the secure it is. The government also comes out with a whole lot of manuals that go along with it, especially in the professional driver's handbook and the trucker's guide to handbook. And if anybody's ever looked at those, you'll find out that the load securement part of it is very small. And it's not that it's very small in when we're getting out into the trucking industry, is that there is so much involved with it, is that they just didn't put it in the small books that are out there, is that each load is very specific on how it is to be secured. And that's one of the biggest things is that we have to get very confident on how to secure things down. And a lot of the times it does come with a lot of experience. And unfortunately, we don't want it to be the bad type of experience. We wanted the good side. So again, if it looks good enough to do it, secure it more. It's just that adage of it looks good just doesn't happen out there. We want to make sure that load stays there as it's going along. As far as the rest of the securement side of it, like I say, for the most part, every securing device out there that is used for load securement should be identified or stamped on it and things to understand how much that strap or chain or wire rope or load binder has that working load limit. And that's very important, especially when we come to knowing if that load is going to shift. And like I say, using a bigger strap is usually much better than just trying to get away with that. Well, it should work. The unfortunate things is that those should work things happen out there, and they should never happen. We're talking about safety, and the more straps and the more secure it is on the back of the trailer, we're going to get a much better reputation in the public's eye and have much safer roads out there. I want to thank you a lot for just paying attention. Like I say, it was a very short presentation, trying to get as much information in there. The unfortunate thing is that it is just a very cursory look at what the load securement inside. If you'd like more information about it, there are a lot of resources, our company being one, and you can find us at www.sassafety.org. We're also on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and things like that. Give our office a call. We'll be more than willing to help you out. And there are other people out there in the same industry as we are. And one of them is Andrea, who's going to be coming up and just adding a little bit more to this information. So we're going to turn it over to Andrea now, I believe. And
yeah, I'll just make a quick introduction here,
okay.
Greg. Thank you, Greg. Again, great breakdown of what we need to do to ensure the loads are secure, and again, a breakdown of why the safety factors surrounding the securement tools that you utilize to do that is very critical. So thank you for that. And again, it's like I say, yeah, I'm sure you could go on for hours on this, and there's a lot of detail. Again, we have a limited amount of time. So I would like to take the moment here. Sorry, Andrea, I didn't introduce you at the beginning here. But I would like to just introduce Andrea Hardy. She is a representative from PSAC, and PSAC is one of our trade associations or industry associations that direct the activities of Energy Safety Canada. And again, she's going to give more of an industry related view on this too. I'm just going to get in here and change the screens around for get some slides up here that she's going to present on here. So, and I will put that up for you. And welcome, Andrea, and thank you for taking the time to join us here today. So we should have the screen up there for you now.
Great, thanks very much. I'm here to talk specifically about the cargo securement best practice, but I think maybe before I get into that, for those of you who are not familiar with PSAC, PSAC is the Petroleum Services Association of Canada. You can find some information about us on www.psac.ca. But it is the association representative of the energy services within the oil and gas industry, and so there's a whole variety of services that are represented. But one area that I would maybe like to, and you can leave it on that slide, Arnie, if you want to just leave it there, and I'll speak to that one in 2 minutes here. But one thing that I just wanted to do a plug for this group is that within our members, we do have a PSAC Transportation Issues Committee, where a number of our members meet regularly to discuss issues that pertain to their operations as they deal with transportation. This group meets approximately every 4 to 6 weeks or so. There's no meetings in the summer months as well as December, but they meet on a regular basis. And this is an opportunity within this group for discussions and then advocacy work by PSAC outside of this group, where they talk about issues relating to hours of service, ELDs, many advocacy pieces around attempting to harmonize the transportation regulations, particularly between Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, so those Western provinces, as well as those federal regulations for many of you that are fall under the federal jurisdictions. We also deal with transportation of dangerous goods, as well as any kind of cross-border transportation topics and issues, which has seemed to become especially relevant this year with some of the challenges that we faced with COVID and how that's added to some of those pieces. So I wanted to do a plug there that if this is relevant to you, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to discuss any of this with you specifically. One of the pieces that does fall under this Transportation Issues Committee and is one of sort of the benefits for our members, and this document is also available for a charge for non-members, is the oil and gas industry cargo securement best practice. And so this document was developed in January of 2005, there it says, and it was developed between the CAODC, they've now changed their name, so CAOEC and PSAC, and then they were, it was developed in cooperation with Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan, and industry to be able to have a best practice that addresses oil and gas industry specific issues as they relate to North American cargo securement standard. So just for your reference, I think these slides are going to be distributed to the attendees afterwards. There's a link there where the full standard is available for easy reference. And I think Greg's gone sort of into the specifics of the standards, so maybe we can just move on to the next page here. Great, thanks. And Greg had some really great slides that summarize this up way nicer than this is presented here. But essentially part one of the standard states that, you know, you can't leak, spill, items can't blow off, fall through, dislodge, shift up or within the vehicle. And so that Greg summarized that perfectly there, but that's kind of the essential provisions of part one here with that. And then there's also just a note that you have to ensure that any equipment is designed or adapted in such a way that it can meet those requirements of the standard. You can move to the second page.
Okay.
And Greg had a beautiful diagram too that actually summed this up in a much better way. So I'll let you refer to his slide on this piece. But this is again a summary from the standard that states those weight limits in terms of, or the forces that are required. So you have that 80% of the weight of the load for that forward direction, 50% for the deceleration or rear direction, again 50% for the sideways, and then 20% for going the downward force. So again, those rough roads. And so that summarizes those pieces. There's also some interpretation guidelines for the standard that are available on the CCMTA website. I've included the link there because it's not a super easy document to find on their webpage, but it is in there if you dig around a little bit, but that link is included there as well too if you are interested in getting to that document specifically. We can move to that next slide. And so I think with the cargo securement best practice, what we have here, and I just included some of the pieces of equipment that are summarized in here, is that the document actually goes through and specifically describes what some of these requirements are for these specific pieces of equipment. So within this document, it addresses securement requirements for production equipment, coil tubing operations, vac truck operations, drilling and service rig tubulars, rig moving, tubular products, and then tie downs and inspection for wear requirements. So that's a quick sort of overview of what's summarized in that document. I won't get into the specifics of that one today, but again, if you are interested in accessing this document, I would recommend that you can feel free to reach out with me directly, or you can find more information on our website, which is psac.ca. It's listed on that slide as well. You can also access this document by emailing accounting@psac.ca, and we can help you and support you in getting that information. All of that is available on the website. But I would say, you know, I'd put a plug in for this document, that it is a valuable resource in giving you some specific guidance in terms of oil and gas equipment, and an excellent reference with some of those pieces. Before we get into some questions and pieces too, I just wanted to mention with this group a little plug on some ELDs, because I know many of you are affected by the ELD mandate that is going to come into effect on June 12th, 2021 here. So that is in, well, we're the 1st, so in 11 more days, that's going to come into effect. The good news is that through some advocacy work here, through PSAC and a number of other organizations, they have now agreed to do a period of education and awareness starting June 12th versus enforcement. And that period of education and awareness is going to continue for at least a year right now until June 12th, 2022. And the reason for this education and awareness piece is that right now there is only one approved certification body for ELDs that is named FP Innovations. There are some others, 2 other companies that are sort of being accredited as certification bodies. That has not come through yet. But at this time, there are still no approved ELDs on that certification list by FP Innovations or any other organizations. And so it's very difficult to be in compliance with a regulation that's in place if you don't have anything on the certified list to be able to install. And we need to allow a window of opportunity for the chance to do research for the appropriate unit for your fleets, as well as training and installation and all of those considerations. So we're pleased that there is now this education and enforcement component, or education and awareness component. I'm going to take that word enforcement out of there for that year period. And I would assume that date could be adjusted if we continue to go for a longer period without any certified ELDs. I would also like to just mention that the current regulations state that if you're operating under a permit, then an ELD is not required. So PSAC, through some work, has confirmed with Transport Canada that those that operate under the oil field services exemption permit fall under that. So they are exempt from the requirement to install ELDs according to that criteria in there. So I wanted to make those of you aware of that as well, who may fall under that criteria. And there are maybe 2 scenarios though where you may have a permit and could still require an ELD. The first one is where you might have multiple drivers for single vehicles. So some are hours of service permit drivers and others are not. And the second piece is that you may use the same trucks for company non-hours of service permit activities. So you might be doing load pickup, deliveries, service repairs, those types of activities, which would occur off permit. And so that piece. But if you don't fall under one of those two scenarios and you do have, you do operate under that oil field services exemption period permit, then you aren't required to install ELDs at this time. So I just wanted to give a quick update on that because I know it's top of mind right now for some of you that have this piece in there. So a quick plug there, even though it's a little separate from load securement. But those are my two pieces that I wanted to share with the group.
Great, thank you, Andrea. It's just if you've got questions, by all means, feel free to fire them out there. And if you don't wish to, just type them in the chat box, please. And if you feel that any question will be valued, if you don't want to post it publicly, just send it directly to me. If you just click on the bottom of the screen and where it says to everyone, just open that and click it and just send it directly to me, and then I can read that question if you don't wish to identify yourself, and that's fine. But again, we certainly we have two people that have a good grasp on this this topic, so we'd like you to fire away so that maybe there's something that you're not quite sure of, and they can address those situations. So I don't see anything coming up. Okay, we have first questions coming up here. So wondering if there is a place that keeps stats on incidents due to load securement. Greg, do you have any idea on that?
The Canada Safety Council used to keep that statistics. Unfortunately, it dealt with more with injuries and fatalities that went along with it. As far as being specific to load securement incidents, I haven't found anything specific to people losing their load. One of the biggest things is that it's like everywhere else, is if nobody sees it, it's never reported. And one of the things is that these little incidents that happen where you lose a piece of equipment or things, the driver or the crew that's working with it, they rectify the situation and then it carries on. We don't have a really good reporting system for these smaller things, and it's something we in the safety area always have found out that a lot of things go unreported just because of the embarrassment or the things that go along with it. And until it actually happens that it ends up with an injury, death, as perhaps, or things like that, again, nobody seems to really have a means of reporting it as a whole industry as such. Different firms and companies and things are very good at knowing that, but that's more internal than having a national statistic out there.
Okay, thank you. Just Patrick is commented on here as well that said that try your local CVSA offices. Their enforcement people should have some stats for you as well. Another question, a bit off topic, but it has to do with electronic logging. What happens if you have a driver who operates multiple trucks in one day? He can't take the EL with him from truck to truck. So question marks.
Yeah, Ian, and I think that's sort of the unfortunate part. He can't, I think you nailed it. You can't take the ELD with him from truck to truck. So the requirement would be that those ELDs are installed in each of the vehicles that he would be operating, unless those vehicles happen to fall under some kind of permit. So oil field services exemption permit, you may operate under another permit. But if you're not operating under a permit, then each of those vehicles that fall under that federal jurisdiction would require installation of an ELD.
I would suspect there'll be lots of challenges as we move forward into this new technology to do the data logging. So yeah. Any more questions out there? There's nothing that I see posted here, but feel free to unmute for a minute if you wish to, and just if you don't feel like typing, by all means, it's an open forum for everybody to step in. Okay. We don't see anything. Okay, here we go. If there are electronic logging device units that can use a Bluetooth connection to a portable device like a smartphone, so the driver can take their device with them when leaving the electronic device in the truck. Oh, there are. Okay, so there are. So, okay, thanks, Dave, for that, adding that information. So there, you can use a Bluetooth connection to a portable device. Okay. Okay, I know there's a lot of silence there. We'll leave it there for a minute, but there's, there's other questions. By all means, bring them forward. And if Bob, if you wanted to jump in, did you have anything you wanted to comment on the meeting so far today, Bob? Just our Bob Rosser, divisional or regional manager for energy safety in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, I hope you could hear me. It's been a pleasure having working with these presenters as well as working with PSAC over the years and the Saskatchewan Safety Council. My history before joining back Inform/Energy Safety Canada was with occupational health and safety. And I still have vivid memories of seeing some of the results of load securement, accidents, injuries. I can still remember one where we talk about load securement. We don't think anything of it, but we had a cement truck leave the road north of Saskatoon and hit a merge. And the bolts were so rotten and rusted out on the bottom of it, the actual filled cement mixer on the back of this truck went over and cleaned the cab right off, taking the operator with him. We've had situations where load binders on semis have broken free and actually taken the life of other citizens as well too. So load securement is definitely a major factor in ensuring the safety of not only the road people out there or the public, but of course everyone else associated with that. So that's, I'll finish up with that, Arnie. I don't want to take the stage on this one.
Okay. Okay, I didn't see any other questions. Just gonna let me open the chat room again here. Just let me have a quick peek at it again before we get into the statistical data. So I take that again. I say we thank you to our presenters. If you wish to stay on, by all means, stay with us for a bit. I'll go through some of the stats here that we have, and I've just got to get my PowerPoint back to where I need it to be, and go from there and go through some of the stats of what we're dealing with for this year. So just a second here. Anyways, again, thank you everyone for attending, and we will go through some of the stats and some of the other information here. Okay. Okay. And yes, it's fun time. I haven't done a Zoom meeting for a while.
Well, yeah, well, while Arnie's looking that up, then the other thing that basically Glenn had reference to is the rating of securement devices, and that there's a lot of stuff coming offshore right now that won't even have ratings on it. And we have to be so careful right now when we look at some of those devices that are being purchased, because there's a popular misconception that if you galvanize something and that the iron under it is proper, but some of the actual castings of these devices, hooks and anchor points, so on and so forth, has been under question. And we have done work on fatals associated with the metallurgy behind inadequate fasteners as well too. I see another link came in on the chat, Arnie.
Okay. Okay, Jim has asked, multiple trucks on most systems, a driver is assigned a username and password, and that enables him to log into any unit, and his records can be retrieved when he logs in. Okay, so looks like we've got some people that are well versed in what's going on with electronic data logging. That's good to know. Okay.
Well, what we discussed before too was with federal legislation being provincially enforced by some of the highway traffic regulators, there seems to be some inconsistencies. So those that travel throughout Western Canada, be aware that what may work in one province may be in question in another. So be well aware of that there's, especially during the introduction of new legislation, there are some creative people out there when it comes to interpreting it.
Okay.
Okay, it's all yours, Arnie.
Okay, well, we got the PowerPoint up here, so we'll go through some of the stats here, and we'll go through that. Just let's see here. Okay, so when we look at the injuries statistics for the first quarter here, we can see that we've got a fair number of the, like I say, when the claim costs in January, the top 6 injuries in the first quarter. This is in the all WCB rate codes in Energy Safety Canada. So that'd be D32, D41, D51, and D52. Again, it's a lower number. Again, we'll see some other stats here, but we've got 55 injuries that have claims have been submitted. Overall total, these are the top 6 that are in there. So those numbers won't add up to 55, but that's the total number of costs so far that have been put out. Also wanted to just kind of touch on the payroll as well too. When we look at the payroll, we can see that the payrolls in the 4 rate codes have dropped substantially. So this is the 2016, and I've got the full 5-year history and then the forecast for 2021 in here too. So our industry is taking a bit of a nosedive. Well, maybe not quite a nosedive, but it has dropped off substantially over the last few years as far as the activity within the industry. So that is a bit of a concern, but again, this year looks promising. There's some good things that are happening out there, so we're looking forward to seeing some improved productivity within our sector. So hopefully these numbers will go up. The yellow chart here reflects the premiums, so that would be basically it's going to reflect exactly what the payroll is doing as well. So we can see those numbers. When we look at these injuries, again, I kind of put in the summary for what the total injuries were for last year to give you an overall view of it. You can see how the injuries, quarter 4, I mean, that would be the year end stats for 2018, 2019, 2020. And you can see how much we have dropped in the last 3 years as far as injuries. And again, I mean, they're certainly, we want to take credit and say, the industry take credit and say it's because we're a safer workplace. But again, a lot of it has to do with the activity that has been dropped off in the industry as well too. So again, not that we want to talk about, but nobody hurt, nobody get moved, but that's a common phrase that happens and common people will be commonly said. But again, it's that point that is something that we are concerned, again, as we have seen a lot of people leaving our industry and pursuing careers elsewhere. And as we ramp back up, we are going to bring a lot of new people in. So again, we have to be very diligent. These numbers are at quite a substantial low compared to what they have been over the past 15, 20 years. So again, it's a concern that we want to be aware of. When we look at the total claims again, like I say, for quarter 1, the total claims in the 4 sectors, again, we can see the quarter 1 stats that we received back in April and where we're sitting compared to last year. So this is year to year quarter 1 stats. This reflects what's going on. Again, we're down substantially as well too. So like I say, the lost time accidents were down 15 compared to last year. And again, lost time, that's a concern, but it's floated in the last, prior to this year, it's been, in that 25 to 30 or 35 range. So there's concerns. Lost times cost a lot more. And again, we certainly want to encourage companies to develop their return to work programs or modified duties or whatever it might be to lessen the amount of claims and costs. Okay, so again, this is the total claims. Again, when we look at what's happening, the type of claims, so the contact with objects, falls, bodily reactions, exposures, those are the predominant pieces of the pie that are happening. And when we look at this again, when we look at the overall, again, the 55 claims that have been submitted for the first quarter of 2021. And again, we can look at the overall causation of claims, the 5-year history. Again, you can see those categories are play the key factors. So the bodily reaction, contact with objects are the number 1 and 2 over the past 5 years. We are developing something to look to address some of the exposure issues that are happening as well too. So as far as we're working with our colleagues in British Columbia and Alberta, developing some ways to deal with the exposures as well that are happening. And there seems to be a bit of an increase in what those might be. So next slide, the body part that's injured. Again, we talked about the top 6. Again, normally we go to the top 5. For the quarter 1, we got such a small amount of data. I went to top 6, but over the 5-year time frame, we can see that hand, leg, back, head, and arm have always been the dominant ones. Again, those are the areas of injury, and it's the limbs, usually, again, the back injuries. Again, I will make a plug again for the WorkSafe Saskatchewan and the Chiropractor Association of Saskatchewan when it comes to back injuries. There's a program out there. You can bring a chiropractor out to your workplace, or you can get them to do a Zoom meeting for you. I mean, we had it at our last meeting. Dr. Doug Pattison did present on the back injuries, and it's a phenomenal presentation. And if you were able to attend the WCB Comp Institute, he presented earlier or last week as well on this. So it is a great message to reduce the number of back injuries that are out there. And like I say, I kind of cut back on the stats a fair bit just for time's sake. Certainly by quarter 3 here, our meeting, we will probably get into more detailed stats and we'll have more information from the statistics. Just to give you some other webinars, I just quickly punch these in here, that the upcoming webinars that are happening through Energy Safety Canada. So June 9th, they're going to be focusing on micro learnings, shift from training to risk mitigation. So again, just a quick summary. I mean, there's more details on our website regarding that. And then June 22nd or June 21st, the audited challenges and solutions is also available. There's a lot of great information on our website, the micro learnings concerning the 10 life-saving rules. If you haven't seen those yet, by all means, have a look. And again, those are great little 2-minute sessions that you can bring to your safety meetings that will certainly enhance the meeting, so that it's not just the same monotone person speaking about safety issues, where you can have some video involved with it to show some of the advantages of addressing those life-saving rules and making sure people are aware of the hazards that are out there. So that is pretty well a wrap on my part. I think we're going to let everybody out of here early, unless there's a lot more questions that come our way. If there's certainly any questions that for us, by all means, yeah, there's the contact information for me. Certainly send me an email, or text me on my cell phone, whatever it might be. And if you have a question or concern, please identify who you are, and certainly we will address those as they come to our attention.
Arnie, it's Bob here again. Maybe we should jump in and provide a little clarity to the folks as well too. When Arnie's speaking about our rate codes are through the Saskatchewan Workers' Compensation Board. And when he speaks about basically a rate code, like I say, the D41 code in Saskatchewan directly represents the majority of our PSAC companies as well too, and the oil field haulers, truckers, so on and so forth. But then in Saskatchewan, there's also what is called the T code, which is the transportation code. And that is a different side of the basically of the trucking sector as well too. And they're predominantly hauling internationally and doing this and that. So just so you start looking at the statistics, we have a very focused view on trucking and load transportation, load securement, so on and so forth within that, because it's one of the rate codes that we're directly responsible for, and that would be the D41 code. The other transportation codes, they fall under a different association with the trucking sector as well too. So just so that there's some clarity there for, especially I see some folks from Alberta as well too. I know Alberta has a similar breakdown regarding how their workers' compensation stats apply as well too. So I just thought I'd throw that in as a side note.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Yeah, I see a question, are you seeing similar equivalent stats in BC and Alberta? To be honest, I don't get into those a whole lot. I guess I could get that information to you. We do a comparison chart to see where the costs are happening, or the #1 claims. There is some we do try to monitor, but I will say right now we keep abreast of it, but right now I don't have that information for you. I mean, we can see what's going on. I believe the statistics, I mean, the number of injuries has dropped. Alberta might be having a little bit more activity than what we've seen in Saskatchewan. So again, I don't have privy to all that information right at
the the running joke in probably a lot of Western Canada, we talk about pipelines, especially basically the picture that's been painted recently. But when you start looking about how much is moved with 18 wheels, the trucking sector is such a key component within our industry. Everything moves, everything is mobile. And this is why it's definitely a focal point for us, is dealing with the transportation sector in the oil and gas. And again, working with our colleagues from PSAC as well too, as well as the Saskatchewan Safety Association. So that's it on my end then, Arnie.
Yep, that's about all. I mean, we could we could continue to visit here and talk about things. Certainly, I'm concerned about the Leaf fans that are out there. I mean, I hope you're getting through this okay today. It's probably a difficult day for you, but again, well, there's always next year, right? So, but other than that, we will probably call this a wrap here for today. Unless anybody else has anything they'd like to jump on and speak to, or if there's a great event that somebody's hosting that would like to invite people to, by all means, just we'll give you a couple of minutes of free airtime to promote that that event. Okay. Go Jets, go. Here we go. Yes. Western Canada team. There we go. All right.
Okay, thank you. Good day.
Thank you all.